Welcome back to another edition of Literary Diss Tracks. Today, hailing from Ireland, we have W.B. Yeats, perhaps the most prominent poet of the late 19th and early 20th century, including one of my favorite poems, The Second Coming, versus Aleister Crowley, a poet and writer in his own right, though he's most known today as a sort of totem of occultism. What makes this literary feud particularly unique is that it results in a wizarding magic duel and also vampires. But first, some context. So this feud takes place in Victorian England, and Victorianism is a weird and rich period of literary history, so spanning roughly from mid-19th century to the very early years of the 20th century. What we see in this period is a rise of secularization. As a result of this decline in religious belief, along with an increase in scientific dogma, we see two diametrically opposed schools of belief emerge. On the one hand, you have the rise in popularity of scientific naturalism, which of course shuns any kind of non-physical superstition. On the other hand, you have those who are taking a vested interest in precisely that, the non-physical, perhaps even supernatural world, and therefore essentially filling the religious void of the time with something rather taboo and titillating, practicing things like geomancy, alchemy, and perhaps most popular at the time, seances. There's a lot of spiritualist groups sort of cropping up around this time, but one of them is the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a secret order of like-minded spiritualists that practice the things I mentioned earlier, though they also placed a great deal of emphasis on decoding cipher manuscripts used in pursuit of further hidden knowledge related to magic. Their focus, however, was discovering and practicing white magic, or roughly magic used for selfless purposes. W.B. Yeats was really drawn to this kind of spiritualism, and in 1890, Yeats joins the London branch of the Golden Dawn, which included other prominent members like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of Sherlock Holmes, and possibly, arguably, Bram Stoker, author of Dracula. However, there's another dude entering into the Golden Dawn, Aleister Crowley, or as he would later come to be known throughout England, the, quote, wickedest man in the world. From the outset, Crowley is a pariah amongst the group. For one thing, he lives a very libertine and hedonistic lifestyle that the other members find quite disagreeable. But even worse, they really don't like how he's interpreting their practices and rituals. They fear that he has aims to appropriate their white magic and repurpose it into black magic. And for this reason, they decide to oust him from the group, but Crowley ain't going down without a fight. So in 1900, we have the Battle of Blythe Road, as it comes to be called. Now, Blythe Road is where the Golden Dawn's London headquarters are set. Leading up to this, Crowley has been practicing some magic to try to bend the group's will towards his. That hasn't worked, and so he shows up to Blythe Road with the purpose of stealing some of the group's prized documents, perhaps even including some of their prized cipher manuscripts. However, Yeats and some other members catch wind of this, and they are ready for him. Aleister Crowley shows up to Blythe Road wearing ritualistic Celtic garb, which must have infuriated Yeats even more, seeing as how Yeats was actually Irish. And Aleister Crowley immediately begins drawing the signs of the pentacle and shouting magic, curses, and spells up the stairs to where Yeats and the others are blocking his entrance. As Crowley climbs the stairs, shouting his spells, Yeats is giving it back with his own spells meant to thwart or stop Crowley. But as their spells are not seeming to have any effect, Yeats does the next best thing, which is as Crowley ascends the stairs, Yeats simply kicks him down the stairs.
You shall not pass!
But it's not over yet. Crowley leaves Blythe Road with his dignity bruised, and later Yeats is able to procure a lock of hair from Crowley's head, Now, according to Yeats's biographer, Richard Ellman, quote, "The poet cast the requisite spells and exorcisms, and Crowley was not long in feeling their effect. That night when the black magician went to bed, he discovered a vampire beside him. All night long she bit and tore at his flesh. His best charms proved of no avail against her ferocious advances, and for 9 nights the torture went on." Now, Crowley is evidently able to exorcise himself of this vampire that Yeats casted upon him. Needless to say, though, he's not welcome back at the Golden Dawn. And so he forms his own sort of group of esoteric, spiritual occult called Thelema. And Yeats goes on to just keep writing some of the best poetry of the early 20th century. So next time you hear someone saying that literature is boring, tell them this story.